all, gives me immense pleasure to extend your warm welcome on behalf of Navrachana University, Vadodara, and Christ deemed to be University, Bangalore, to the National Workshop on Media Studies Research Methodology. Beginning with the third day, we have with us Dr. Rajesh A. Dr. Rajesh Aruchami works as an assistant professor in the Department of Media Studies, Christ deemed to be University. Dr. Rajesh completed his PhD from Bharatiya University, Coimbatore in 2014. His research interest includes political communication, social media studies, and Dravidian politics. He is currently working on a major research project funded by the ICSSR Impress scheme on the topic of New Wave regionalization in Tamil Nadu. At the end, we will have a question answer round. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me as a resource person for this workshop. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the topic given to me, I think last 2 days, I mean, the previous 2 sessions that you had on Friday and Saturday, you might have come across how to start with research, the basics of research, and how to verbal review of literature, how to state a problem. Likewise, right? Similar topics of that nature. This session, I was given this task of introducing you to quantitative methods of research. So we'll just start with the basics of quantitative methods. Just a second, I will just share the screen and. Yeah, I hope the screen is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the topic given to me was introduction to quantitative research. So before we get into the topic per se, I just want to start with the basic element of any quantitative research, that is variables. I'm not sure which class these students belong to. May know from which class or which year of your undergraduation are you from? The students who are present for this session. If you could respond in chat box or.
Yeah. So here second years, first years and second years are here.
All right.
And few research students are also there who started, their PhD research. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So any quantitative research has this fundamental element called as variables. Now, variables we categorize into 3 types: dependent variable, independent variable, and intervening variable or extraneous variable. Now, from this slide, right, you can see the athletes sprinting for a 100-meter or 1,000-meter, whatever it may be. So you have 3 athletes here, and with the jersey number 66, 1600, and 4 here on the top, right? Or if you get a 100 maybe. So you have 3 athletes, and these athletes have been training for this particular competition for a period of 1 year or so. And at the end, one of them is going to win this competition. Now, these athletes are being trained over a period of time, and they are being systematically trained for this particular competition, and they have been given nutrients and adequate calories and ample workouts to burn those calories to make themselves fit. So the rigorous training has been done over a period of time. Now, so the results at the end, they will decide who is the fastest among these 3 people. Who is fastest among these 3 people? So within how many seconds are they going to cross this 100-meter line? Or within how many minutes are they going to cross this 10,000-meter sprint? So, here it is measured, like here the time taken by the athlete is going to be measured. So that is what you call as the dependent variable. So the variable that you're going to measure is termed as the dependent variable. Whereas variables like adequate number of nutrients. For example, athlete with jersey number 1600, he might be given 1,000 calories of proteins every day, or this athlete with jersey number 66, he might be given calorie value of 800 calories of protein every day. Likewise, so each depends, like each one will get their own nutrient content and also the workout practices over a bit of time, and it will be varying. It will be varying from person to person depending on their physique and also depending on their stamina. So each one will be the coach will vary these numbers and the number of hours practicing in the ground. 4 hours per day, 6 hours per day, 2 hours per day. So all these things which can be varied over a period of time is called as an independent variable. The amount of nutritional value that they're taking in, the amount of time they're going to spend in gym or in the play in the ground for practicing. All right. So this is what you call as the independent variable. Now, these independent variable might create an impact on the dependent variable. That is how long they are going to complete this particular 100-meter complete this 10,000 meter. So this will have a direct impact on the dependent variable that we are going to measure. So nutritional quality of the food, amount of time spent in burning the calories, amount of time in practicing for this particular event. So all those things will actually help whether the person with jersey number 1600 is going to win, or 66 is going to win, or number 4 is going to win. So here the independent variable, these calories, workout, and practicing, it will directly impact the time taken by the athlete to complete this particular event. So here we have dependent variable and independent variable. So always keep in mind the dependent variable is the one which is going to be measured, and independent variable is the one which we can manipulate. The researcher can manipulate, and it will have a direct say on the dependent variable. But there might be other factors. There might be other factors which we might, as a researcher, might forget to take note of. What you call as the intervening variable. Intervening variable. Now the athlete might take extra calories without the knowledge of the coach, or the athlete might have skipped 1 or 2 training sessions without the knowledge of the coach. Now that will also be reflected in the final time taken by the athlete. So intervening variables are the ones which might affect the result of the research and which the researcher may not be aware of, which the researcher may not be aware of. Now, in a controlled experiment, it is definite that we can control all the variables. But if it is not an experimental and it's just a field survey, if it is a field survey, there might be so many factors which might be taken into account. For example, take these elections that are happening in 5 states in India, right? So where are these elections happening? In which 5 states are these elections happening? Can anyone answer? What are the states? Which are the states that are going for assembly elections? Which are elections the day for yesterday, and also going for elections in the month of April? Can anyone respond?
Kerala, Assam, West Bengal.
Assam, West Bengal.
Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu.
Pondicherry.
Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, and
Pondicherry and
yeah, may I know who's this?
Pudja.
All right, and Kerala, right?
So, Kerala, yeah.
Yeah. So you have this elections that are happening in these 5 states, and you might have come across a lot of opinion polls being conducted, and TV channels, they telecast these opinion polls. Who is going to win the elections in Assam or Kerala, or West Bengal, or Tamil Nadu, or Pondicherry, whatever it may be. Now, they might have said that people might have voted for this particular reason, but there might be some other reasons why people might have voted for one particular party, which the researcher may not be aware of. So that is what you call as an intervening variable, all right, which might affect the result, affects the result of the research, but the researcher is not aware of, all right. So, for example, in West Bengal, people might think that Mamata Banerjee is has not done enough work. But so that we should oust Mamata Banerjee. Now that may be a primary reason, but then there may be other reasons also why people may not want Mamata Banerjee. For that matter, people think that Mamata Banerjee has done well, so they wanted to stay as the chief minister for another 5 years. Now there may be other reasons why. One reason could be they don't want BJP to have any kind of a presence in West Bengal because it might lead to polarization or whatever it may be. And or they might think that BJP doesn't have a chief ministerial candidate. So there may be other reasons, all right. So, but we cannot come to a conclusion only because of this. People have voted for Mamata Banerjee or voted against Mamata Banerjee unless we are very sure that all the factors have been taken into account. So, in an experimental study with a controlled variables, it's quite possible to to take care of this intervening variable, whereas in a field study, it is not possible to take care of this intervening variable. So there will be obviously a caveat. Or there are other factors which might have affected the study. I hope this is clear, right? So different variable, independent variable, and intervening variable. So different variable is the one which a researcher is going to measure. Independent variable is the one which can affect the results of the different that we are going to measure. And intervening variable is the one where the investigator fails to take note of. Now, one of the major method of quantitative study is the survey research. Survey research, as you see in the picture, right? You have a person conducting survey. I think that picture was related to the census population, the census survey that happens once in a decade, and you have this opinion poll and polling station. What is the name of the poll that is conducted after the election? Now, opinion poll is before the elections. What is the name of the poll? What is the name that is given to the process that is being conducted after the elections? Once the people cast their votes, what is the name given to that?
So exit poll.
Exit polls is the name given to the survey that is conducted immediately after the elections. Once the people come out of the polling booths after casting their votes. Now, survey research is one of the one of the important forms of conducting a now, survey research, there are two types of survey research. One is descriptive, other one is the analytical survey. Now, descriptive survey just describes or narrates what the current condition is. What are the attitudes? Just to explain what is happening at this particular moment. What is happening at this particular moment. Descriptive survey might be like, what is the political situation in Bengal, or what is the political situation in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. All right, so a TV channel like our TV channel, news organization, or a research organization, Sea Water, or you have this other private organizations which conducts research, right? So they might an AC Nielsen survey. All these people, they go to the field and say that what are the important factors that might, what are the important aspects of this particular poll of this particular elections that are happening in Bengal and Tamil Nadu and Kerala and other states. So they just describe what might be the issues, for example, employment issues, educational issues, there might be related to anti-incumbency. So these are things that people might vote. On this basis, people might vote. Whereas the analytical survey goes little deep. They say that it actually studies why this is happening, why there is an anti-incumbency factor. Descriptive survey just say that there is an anti-incumbency factor. Is there an anti-incumbency factor? Yes or no? That's it. Whereas the analytical survey will tell why there is an anti-incumbency factor. Why people are against ADMK? Why people are against Mamata Banerjee? Why people are against left parties in Kerala? Why people are against BJP government in Assam? What they have done so far in the last 5 years? What things have clicked and what are the schemes that have not clicked? How did they handle this COVID-19 crisis? What are the aspects on which people are going to measure the government's efficiency in the last 5 years? So it actually goes in depth and try to examine the interrelationship between different variables. Try to establish relationship between different variables and develop explanatory inferences also. All right, so multiple variables will come into existence. So why people are voting against the particular government? So that's an anti-incumbency factor. Why there's an anti-incumbency factor? There might be a corruption. The government has not performed well. That's a reduction in employment. People have lost jobs. The government did not handle the COVID situation in a very effective manner. The government did not give a kind of what do you call, did not have any supportive system for people belonging from economically backward classes and so to cope up with this COVID situation. So there may be different variables that might come into play. So to study the interrelationship between this, some people might think that the government has done well in terms of COVID, in terms of COVID, controlling the COVID, whereas the same section of people may think that the government, a lot of corruption is there in the government. So within the voters itself, those who vote against the government because of the anti-incumbents factor, there might be different variables at play. Some section might think that employment has increased. Some people might think that employment has reduced. Some people might think the COVID situation has been controlled. Some people might think that COVID situation has not been controlled. So there's an interplay of variables. All right. So that is also the purpose why we are conducting an analytical survey. How different variables are being studied. What are the relationship between these different variables? Now, what are the advantages of conducting a survey? What are the advantages of conducting a survey research? First one is it is used to investigate in realistic settings. So there's no need to alter anything. So it needs to conduct in the realistic setting. Whereas in experimental study, you need to control everything. Whereas in a survey method, you just go hand out a questionnaire to a person and a sample, then you get the data, right? And the cost of survey is reasonable when compared to the amount of information collected, because some surveys might need hundreds and hundreds of data, and some survey, yeah, right? So then, but the amount of information that you collect out of it is invariable. All right, so that is very important. Then can control expenses by selecting 4 main types of survey. For example, you can conduct a mail nowadays with the advent of internet. You can send in Google Forms or telephone, personal interview, and group administration. So based on the convenience and based on the accessibility, you can use any of these methods to conduct the survey. Now, it allows users to use as many variables as possible and also try different statistic methods. For example, I can use n number of independent variables. For example, age can be a factor, income might be a factor, employment status, demography, whether rural or urban, gender can be a factor, right? Likewise, nuclear family or a joint family. So I can keep on adding independent variables to it. I can keep on adding variables to the survey, but it should be relevant to the study that I'm conducting. But then the option is there, a lot of options. And it's not constrained by geographical boundaries because of the advent of the internet and the technology that we have. So it can be widespread, and secondary data is already available for certain surveys. Now there are 2 types of data. One is primary data and secondary data. Primary data is the one which the researcher is going to collect, or the secondary data is the one which is already there, and we can make use of that data also. We can make use of that already available data from census. Census is a major repository of the data, and you can use it from the particular document also. What are the disadvantages of the survey? Now here the independent variables cannot be manipulated, because only in experimental study you can manipulate the independent variable. Here it's left open, so you cannot. So that's why the chance of having a intervening variable affecting the result is very high. Then inappropriate wording or placement of questions can bias result. So when you construct a questionnaire, which we'll see later, so inappropriate wording or placement of questions can bias results. The wrong respondents may be included in the questionnaire. Now we are giving questions to n number of people, and you might ask your friend also to collect the data. He or she might give to people who may not be who may not fit into the actual sample, of your study. So wrong respondents might be included in your study, and some survey research is becoming difficult to conduct. See, that is in terms of finding the sample. That is in terms of finding the sample, and also in terms of exploratory studies, it's quite difficult to find. But then for undergraduate students, you can do a lot of descriptive study. You can start with a descriptive survey initially. You can with simple variables, like media consumption among undergraduate students in your class, in your university, media consumption among faculty members in your university, right? And why faculty members watch this particular media or other particular media, a particular TV channel or the other particular TV channel. Why professors prefer this media over the other media, or their social media presence. All right, how active are they in social media? What they so likewise, you can do very simple descriptive research to understand what is quantitative research. Now I can keep on saying this, but then the only you will learn a lot only if you conduct a research. Else it will become more theoretical and you will not have that experience. All right. So only if you construct a questionnaire, identify the population and sample, and at least 10 questions, that should be fine. 10 questions, that should be fine. Give to a set of students and just analyze the data. Just a percentage, just a percentage. To start with, percentage calculation is more than enough for anyone who is who is being introduced to research. Just a percentage calculation. Now, 60% of the students watch television rather than reading newspapers. They consume news mainly from social media rather than from television channels. So you'll get different results. Okay, you can analyze the data and you can write the interpretations. So you can just start with basics. You can just start with basics. Of course, there are once you are thorough with the basics, then it's easy to construct a superstructure over that. Now, yeah, one important. All right, fine. Before going to questionnaire, I just want to know: are there any doubts, or if you want to share anything, or you have any questions before we go to the next section, the questionnaire?
So,
Yes.
so how does one combat faulty answers or people lying on a survey, which is very obvious when it comes to surveys of opinion based, or be it like even on census? Like the most lied upon question on a questionnaire would be, how much do you make in a year? And that question is frequently lied upon from like when I've been born, I've seen that question being lied upon. So what do you do then?
Yeah, true. See, that's why you're not supposed to ask very personal questions, right? So you need to give a bracket, annual income, maybe 10 lakh to 15 lakh, 15 lakh to 20 lakhs, 20 lakhs to 30 lakhs. So no one will be comfortable in revealing their income, right? That's your question, right?
Yes, sir. Not just revealing income, but I've also seen it always, like in India, money being a problem where like if you let people know you have money, that's a taboo, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
people
true.
not want to disclose it.
Yeah, true. But yeah, census will take care of it. Census is a basically factual based one, because unless the government has the data, they cannot form policies. That's the other
Also, sir,
important.
on that same note, it takes like 6 to 8 months to collect such data and to get all of it together from how many states? 29 states.
Yes.
Like when all of it does come together, doesn't become redundant because it's already been a year and a half since you last did the census. Now, whatever you're making through those independent variables and like your reports, they are about 1.5 years late.
Yeah, true. See, for the census, that's how census works. Okay, collecting data for the census, that's how it works. It's a very cumbersome process, and thousands of people are involved in collecting the data. And to collate the data and to make meaning out of the data itself, it takes years. I don't agree with what you're saying, but over a period of 2 years, the government releases the census, right? Yeah. So they releases this is the total population of the country. It's economically backward, caste-wise, all those. Now, caste-wise, they are not revealing, but economical, per capita income, all those things, purchasing power parity, all those things they reveal. But then anywhere it's a huge problem. Not only India, anywhere it's a huge problem. And of course, it takes time to conduct such data, to conduct such research. But that's how government machinery works. That's how government machineries work. There's no other goal. There's no other goal where you can, by the way which you can do this. That's why people go hometown. It's a door to door, and they'll ask for the documents to to corroborate what they are saying. So either Aadhaar card or ration card. So they used to ask all those documents to verify the claims of the household people. But of course, in terms of income, there are problems. Even now there are issues. That's why we have a lot of tax evasion cases that are coming in this country day in day out. But there's no other way. There's no other way. But if you don't conduct census, then we may not be able to progress at all. That's the other saddest part, because most of the policies are being or being brought up based on the data that they have. And census is not only for government policies, but to conduct other studies also. census is very, very important. For example, what is the percentage of population who are eligible to vote, basic question. All right, so that's how it works. But then this kind of, it's a governmental project. Okay, it takes a lot of time. But as an individual, you can conduct a survey which is doable, which can be doable within a period of 6 months. Of course, for PhD research, people take a lot of time. They spend for data collection, so they might spend 3 to 4 months, maximum 6 months of time, because it's quite difficult and to collect the data and put in place. So it's very, very difficult. But then it's not that it's not doable. All right, it's not doable. It is doable. Census is a different aspect. It's a completely different one. All right, but for you, I think conducting a media research may not be that difficult. All right, start with basic questions and start with basic research. Don't be too ambitious. Try to understand. Try to do a descriptive research first. Try to get the questions correct. Then you can go for analytical research.
So when selecting a sample of people, how are we going to make sure that there's no bias while selecting those samples?
All right, sampling will come later. That's a valid point. Population sample later. And so far, whatever we have discussed in terms of variables and in terms of survey. Who's the one who asked last question? I may know like the name of the person.
Sir Dhaval.
Dhaval. Fine. So if no doubts, then we can move to the next section, constructing a questionnaire. All right, sample and population will come to that. Okay, after this, we'll come to that. All right. Now, questionnaire is a tool. All right, in a research parlance, when someone says, "Have you constructed the tool?" then it means questionnaire. It means questionnaire. Now, there are two types of questions that you can include in a survey. One is open-ended question. Other one is the closed-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions give respondents the freedom to answer the way they want to. All right, and but that's quite complicated once you complete the research. So it is always advised that open-ended questions be included for the pilot study, not for the research, actual research to be done after the pilot study. And the reason is we will not be able to quantify, we will not be able to tabulate the answers if it is not a closed-ended, because people might answer in a different way, and it's quite difficult to categorize it later. So first we categorize it when you go for a research, then we can easy for us to tabulate it. And the purpose of conducting a pilot study and the purpose of having an open-ended question in pilot study is based on the fact that respondents might throw up a new answer which a researcher might not be aware of. So we can include that as one of the criteria in the closed-ended questions, one of the options in the closed-ended questions. All right. So people might think like, if there's a question, right? I want to just know how people spend time during the from 4 to 6 p.m. From 4 to 6 p.m. Now I can give options. People might go for a walk, they can sleep, they can watch TV, they can listen to radio or FM channel, they can listen to music, they can spend time with friends, they can go outing. So these are the various options I can give. But there might be some other reasons why how people spend time 4 to 6 also. Some people might say they will spend time with their pets, right? Which I am not forcing this. Now, if quite a considerable number of people are at least even 1 or 2 give that option, now I am forced to have that option in my final survey. All right, because that is, I didn't expect it, but then there are answers related to that. So I can use it also as an option in the survey. So that's why open-ended questions are quite useful in pilot study, but not advisable in the final research. Closed-ended questions, respondents select an answer from a list provided, so they cannot go beyond that. And because they are popular because they provide a lot of uniformity, because you have to choose either A, B, C, or D, and it's easy for me to quantify A, B, C, D, A equal to 1, B equal to 2, C equal to 3, and D equal to 4. And that's why answers can be easily quantified. Else it becomes very difficult. For example, how do I categorize? For example, if I have an open-ended question in a survey and there is response or answer in 1 paragraph, now it's quite difficult for me to quantify that. All right, so it's always advisable to have a closed-ended questions in the survey, final survey. Now, constructing questions. This is very important. While constructing a questionnaire for a survey, you need to understand the goals of the project. So you have a stated objectives, right? This is why I'm going to conduct this particular study. So the question should be related to that, to find answers for my research problem. If I want to study about government efficiency, right, in Karnataka, or government efficiency in Gujarat, for example, where you. So you need to frame questions which are related to efficiency of the government, for in terms of COVID. I mean, how effective was government in containing COVID spread? How effective was government in delivering the public, in delivering the what you call in public distribution mechanisms? How efficient is the government in tackling the in tackling the second wave of the COVID? How efficient is the government? So it should be all related to how efficient is government allocating fund in a timely manner to tackle this particular. How efficient is government to send the what do you call that vaccines to all the places in the state, all the districts in the state. So you need to construct questions based on this. So because you are studying the efficiency of the government, so the question should be related to that. So the questions are related to like has the government conducted this cricket match efficiently, right? The India England, no, that doesn't actually mingle with it, because even though with the absence of crowd, like the crowds are not allowed for they are not allowed for the second and third test, I suppose. The third and fourth test that happened in Ahmedabad. But then it may not be related, but that can bring another question, whether the government was able to make efficient decisions, effective decisions in controlling the COVID. So you need to be very clear about what you want to measure and whether you have questions related to that particular aspect. And it should be clear and unambiguous. Keep questions short, not more than a sentence and sentence of few words. That should be fine, not in paragraphs. So it makes the respondents very tight if they read questions, because nowadays, like, people are not, they might be forthcoming to answer your questions if are too lengthy. All right, and some people will just answer the questions for the sake of answering. They may not even look into it. So there are problems also. So in order to avoid all those things, because you need to respect the time of the respondents also. All right, so that is also there. And accurately communicate what is required. That's also very, very important. Anything irrelevant to the survey should not be included at all. And don't assume respondents understand the questions they are asked. So ask the respondents whether you understood the question. If you have any doubts, please ask. But you cannot expect them to answer the way you want them to answer. That's a different. But don't assume that respondents understand the questions that they are asked. Or don't assume. Don't ask double-barreled questions. That means please don't include the word and or in any question. And or should not be avoided. For example, that might be a question, right? Do you find this government effective and corrupt? Do you find this government effective and corrupt? Now, these are two variables, right? Effective and corrupt, these are two factors. So I might think the government is effective in certain terms, but I think that the government is not corrupt. So I can't answer for these two questions in one single question. So I can't answer for this. So you have to divide these questions. So to make two questions. Do you think government is effective? Do you think the government is corrupt? All right. Like this, or effective or corrupt. I cannot say. I can say that I might think it's both effective and also at the same time it is corrupt to an extent. So please avoid having this words and or in a question. Now avoid biased words or terms. All right. So biased words or terms in sense. Do you think a liberal leader like Rahul Gandhi? Now we already attached this term liberal, right? So then that again is a biased version. For example, do you think a strong leader like Narendra Modi? Now, strong leader again, it becomes a highly biased opinion because you already made a decision that Modi is a strong leader, right? So don't get into this. Just ask the questions. Don't include adjectives or any biased terms or which might have negative connotations or even positive connotations. Don't ask. Avoid leading questions. Avoid leading question. One simple common example is, do you still smoke or do you still drink? That means that irrespective of your answer, it means that you are used to smoking or you're used to drinking, right? So that should not be used. So avoid leading questions. Do not ask questions that ask for highly detailed information. See, for example, how did you spend your time during the first lockdown that happened in last year, right? March 19 to April. It was there for 4 months continuously. Now, people may not recall all those things. All right, so highly detailed information, or for that matter, even how do you spend your time watching? How did you spend your time, or which channels you watch, or which are the most watched programs in the month of February? People may not remember that. Now, if you want to have that kind of questions in your research, or if your survey or your research is based on that, then you should provide them a notebook and ask them, request them to note it down in detail. If they are willing to do that, then only, because it's quite impossible to recall what happened 2 months back or 1 month, even 1 month back, right? It's quite difficult. And avoid potentially embarrassing questions, as the student who asked, right? So income related questions, right? No one will be willing to reveal their incomes straight away. So always give brackets. Even the age group, for example, some people may not be able to willing to reveal the ages. So give 20 to 25, 25 to 30. So the interval or the income, 1 lakh to 2 lakh, 2 lakh to 5 lakh, 5 lakh to 10 lakh, 10 lakh to 15 lakh, or more than 15 lakhs. All right. So don't ask embarrassing questions. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind while framing the questions. So you need to understand the goals of the research, the objectives of your research. It should be very clear and it should be very short, simple statements. Don't use jargons, technical terms unless it is necessary, but ensure that the technical terms are understood by the people and accurately communicate what you require from what is required from the respondent, and don't assume that the respondents have understood the questions. Kindly recheck with them. Don't ask double-barreled questions. Avoid biased words or terms. Avoid leading questions, and don't ask highly detailed. Don't ask for highly detailed information, and avoid potentially embarrassing questions. All right. So these are things that you need to take care while constructing the questionnaire. Once you practice it, it will come automatically. All right. Maybe initially, first 2 or 3 times it might be difficult, but over a period of time you will master it. Over a period of time you will master it. Now we get serious questions. How to question order. Now this is very, very important, right? So simple and easy questions, right? What you call as a warm-up question, like related to age, gender, educational qualification, demographic status. All those things can be included in the first part of the questionnaire. Then there should be logical sequence. So from general to specific, that's the norm. So immediately you should not ask how many minutes you spend in Instagram. No, that's not the way to ask. Okay, so you should start from how many. On how many social media platforms are you active? Which is the most social media platform that you use? How many years you spend, or why do you use that particular platform over the other? So generally, go to the specific thing later. Then question on similar topics should be grouped together. All right, that's always important, so that you can categorize, and while analyzing also you can analyze it as a group. So it can be later on media consumption one. The second one can be on satisfaction that I get out of watching that particular content, and the third one is how useful it is, like utility of that particular thing, utility of media consumption. So if I have this as a research to find media consumption, satisfaction, and utility of that consumption, so I can group questions on that basis in order. First 5 questions may be on consumption, next 5 questions may be on satisfaction, and the next 5 questions may be on utility of that consumption. And transition between a question section should be clear and logical. So one to another X to Y, Y to Z, then Z to A, then A to B, B to C, like that. then questions are always equally adequately spaced, and usually it should be vertical, no horizontal horizontal positioning of options. So which media you prefer most? Number 1, television. Number 2, newspaper. Number 3, online. Number 4, social media. Like right number 5, FM radio, whatever it may be. So it should be in a horizontal, vertical position, not in the horizontal positions. Now this is a question that students often ask. What should be the length of the questionnaire? So that depends on the purpose of the survey. What do you want to study? All right. So if there are questions that are adequately met, then that should be met your criteria, then that should be enough. 10 questions, 12, 15. It varies from topic to topic. Then types of questions to be investigated. What kind of questions are you going to ask, and age of the respondents? If your respondents are children in the age of 5 to 10, now it's quite difficult for them to answer lengthy questions. So you should make it very short, and also type and complexity of questions. So that also depends on the age, and also that also depends on the specific audience that you're going to conduct the research. All right, if you want to conduct something related to space science, right? Then now you can't give questions to ordinary people, right? And the questions also, the number of questions that you ask should also be understandable. All right, so that is also there. So these are the important aspects that you should keep in mind while constructing the questionnaire to conduct the survey. Now, once you conduct the questionnaire, you are going to conduct this. Once you prepare this tool, the questionnaire, you are going to conduct this survey. Now, there's something called as validity and reliability. I'm just telling the basic. Now, validity means how valid is your questionnaire. You want to study the media consumption of the college students of Navrachana University. Now, the questions should be in a way that it will identify the consumption pattern of the students at the end of the survey. When I collect the data and analyze it, I should get that result from which I can indicate that students of the Navrachana University spend most time in social media. Students of the Navrachana University spend more time in Instagram. So likewise, so I should get the details. So the validity is that I should measure what my research wants to study. That's the basic idea of validity. Now there are different types of validity. We're not going to it. Face validity, expert validity, content validity, construct validity. There are different types. And then reliability. How reliable is your questionnaire? Now for this, I need to get a consistent information. So they use this test read test. Now I'm giving this questionnaire to a set of people. Now after 10 days, I give this questionnaire to the same set of people. Now then I compare the two results, which I conducted 10 days earlier. Now this result. Now this should be correlated. And if I find the correlation positive, and I find there's a correlation and a strong correlation between the answers, now then this is reliable. Then the answers given by the respondents are reliable, and the question is also reliable. So that's how the validity of the questionnaire and the reliability. Of course, you can use this using SPS is also using Kornberg alpha, but then that comes at a higher level. That comes at a very higher level. All right. So this is validity and reliability. Yeah. Any questions on questionnaire? Any questions? Any doubts you have related to questionnaire, or anything you can add to this? Do any of you conducted surveys so far in your undergraduation so far? Have you considered questionnaires so far? In your research paper or research subject, have you considered a questionnaire so far?
So some of them are doing it for the first time. I think second years are doing it for the first time.
I hope this will be helpful while framing the questions. And yeah. So now, how much time? How left? Like how many more minutes do I have?
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. See, the next one I'm not sure whether we can cover sample and population, but I'll touch it briefly, right? I'll finish it in 5 minutes then. Uh, so the other aspect is content analysis. Survey is one method of doing conducting quantitative study, whereas content analysis, to analyze the content in a media. It can be print media or electronic media, or digital media, whatever it may be, even film for that matter. But when you include numbers, then it becomes a content analysis. Now, content analysis is method of studying and analyzing communication in a systematic, objective, and quantitative manner for the purpose of measuring variables. This is telling here the definition for content analysis. So, method of studying and analyzing communication in a systematic, objective, and quantitative manner. Now, it needs to be systematic. Content analysis needs to be systematic in the sense the content analysis that needs to be selected should be consistently applicable to the applicable rules. Then sample selection must follow proper procedures. All content identified under consideration is to be treated in exactly the same manner. The researcher's bias should not enter into findings, and if replicated, it should produce the same result. Now, one example I give you is I have this newspaper with you, right? The Hindu. I hope you can see this newspaper. Now, this is the first page of the Hindu. Today's, I think this is today's newspaper. I want to do a content analysis of Hindu for a period of 1 month. Right from April 1. Or for example, from March 1 to April 1, I want to study how the elections in the 5 states were covered in Hindu. I want to study only the front page of this newspaper. All right, so I take only the front page of the newspapers from March 1 to April 1, and I start from the headlines are here, right? So here, the first headline is Rajnath and Sitaram Yechuri spar over Kerala probe. Poll campaign sees debate on state rights. So here you have this particular news. Now this is related to election, so I take this. So whatever related to election, I will take this. Other aspects which are not part of election, I will not take this. So there's one story in Hindu on the first page on, for example, March 1. Let's just imagine that's the March 1 newspaper. So that is there. Now I take, I usually content analysis done with one paper or with multiple media also. That's not an issue. Now I take this another newspaper, Deccan Herald, for example. So I want to see how Deccan Herald has covered the elections, the 5 state elections that have been held. Now, Deccan Herald today, there is only one news item which says that Mamata loss of Shah's 26 out of 30 seats claim. That's only one news related to elections in the Deccan Herald. Now, this is in West Bengal. The previous newspaper was related to Kerala. Now, I take another newspaper, which is Indian Express, which is Indian Express, the first page of news. So, I look for news related to, so you have one more news item, in Indian Express also, which is related to managing competing identities in Assam. Now, this is related to Assam elections. Now, 3 newspapers on this particular day have 1 stories each on elections, front page. So, I do this for 30 days, and it should be from the same edition, Bangalore edition. And I am comparing only elections, electoral election coverage of newspapers, and this needs to be systematic. So, I include those stories which are related to elections only. So there should be a mentioning of the word elections in either the headlines or in the content of the newspaper. Only then I'm going to consider it. I'm going to take care of the pictures also into account. And I'm counting how many stories in Indian Express over a period of 30 days. How many stories in Deccan Herald over a period of 30 days. How many stories in the Hindu over a period of 30 days. So over a period of 30 days, I used to tabulate 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories, or whatever it may be. And cumulative thing I used to analyze after. So based on the analysis, I can tell that Indian Express gave more coverage to elections rather than other 2 newspapers. So I can say that the 50 numbers of stories are there in Indian Express on the first page over a period of 30 days. Whereas Deccan Herald had only 30 news stories and Hindu had only 20 stories related to election. then I can clearly say that Indian Express covered elections, gave coverage to elections more adequately than the other two newspapers, right? The number of photos that were published, all this. So this is what you call as a content analysis. So it should be systematic, it should be consistent, it should be objective, and it should be it should be transferable into data. It should be transferable into data. For that you need to codify. For that you need to codify. So either one thing is, as I mentioned, I can always mention that priority coding. That means if there's a word poll or election, then I'll consider as a election related news. That is priority coding. I have decided first. Or emergent coding. While reading the newspaper, I'll get some clues. So I include that also as part of the election news. So that's not based on priority coding, emergent coding, and then criteria coding, and categories coding. So there are different types of coding, but usually priority coding is the most used one. So this is the quantitative way of doing. Now, qualitative content analysis is also done. That is entirely different. That Kailasha, who is going to take next, will take care of. That's based on adjectives, the terms that are being used, all those things. All right. So I think time is now 5:25. So that's the end of my presentation. But then, for the sake, I just want to add one or two things related to sample and population. Right? Can you take 5 minutes extra?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. See, there are two things. One is population and sample. A population is a larger whole. From that population, you are going to identify a sample. For example, Navrachana University, there are 10,000 students. Now, we cannot conduct a survey among 10,000 students. So you take a sample out of it. So 1,000 students. So 1,000 students is a 10% of it, right? So 10% of the population you are going to conduct a survey. For example, you want to study the media consumption among Navrachana University students. Now, we cannot conduct the survey among 10,000 students, so we are taking only 10% of them, that is 1,000 students. And we are going to administer this question to these 1,000 students. Now, how are we going to do this? How are we going to? That's where we need to be extremely careful. People think that random sampling is that just we give the question to everyone. No, that is not random sampling. Random sampling means the chance, there are two types of sampling. One is probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is the one where everyone has equal chance to be represented in this study, which is unbiased, which is objective. Whereas non-probability sampling is convenient, based on the purpose and also based on the convenience. The bias will be there because it may not represent the entire population. So it's always better to go for a probability sampling. And probability sampling, you have this what you call as a random sampling method, stratified sampling method, quota sampling method. Now, random sampling method is, now I need the 1,000 students. So if there are 5 departments, 5 schools, for example, media studies, science, law, management, and education, 5 or engineering, for example, in your university. Now, I need to ensure that 200 students from media studies, 200 students from science, 200 students from engineering, 200 students from law, and 200 students from management should be part of it. Now, in these 200 students, I need to ensure that that's equal representative gender and all the other aspects also is there. So random sampling is, for example, I can take every second number or third number in the register will be my sample. Or every second media studies student who is entering the campus, or every third media studies student who is entering the campus on a particular day will be my sample. So till I get 200, I do that one. Till I get 200, I will have that particular. So likewise for engineering, likewise for medicine, likewise for management, likewise for law. So this is one way of doing this. Now, what if all majority of the second or third student is a boy or a girl? Now there is a skewness. That means in terms of gender. So I have to ensure now within this 200, I need to divide them. I need to divide them equally on the basis of gender. Now, every second girl, every third boy who enters the campus will be part of my sample. You understand? So in that way, I can ensure that, or every second boy and a second girl who is entering the campus will be part of my sample. So in that way, I can ensure that both boys and girls are equally represented. Even if I do that, there might be different there might be different religious background or different demographic background. Now, now I go for quota sampling. Now, even from this, then what I do is I segregate students on the basis of religion or quota. I mean, in sense for study. So I ensure that if there are some 50 Muslim students in the out of 200, now from that 50, I'll take the percentage which can represent the sample. If there are 50 Christian students, then I take the same. If there are 100 Hindu students, I take. So 50 here, 25 here, 25 here. So altogether 50. So 25 out of 50, 25 students from Christians. Out of 50, 25 from Muslim students, 25 from Muslim. They become the sample. And out of 100 Hindu students or 6 students or Parsi, whomever it may be. So I ensure that the proportion is there. I ensure that the equal representation of that particular sect or category is there. I just give example of a religion because that is easy to understand. Like state-wise also, from South Indian state, North Indian state, northeastern part of this country. So like Central India, all right, the western part of this country. So it can be on different basis. All right, so that you have to decide. So this is what you call as the quota sampling. Now, when you do all this together in one survey, then that is called multi-stage sampling. That is called multi-stage stratified random sampling. Multi-stage stratified random sampling. The first one is called random sampling, every second boy, every third girl. The second one based on gender is stratified sampling. So I stratify boys, girls, right, rural, urban, likewise. For example, English medium, Tamil medium, Hindi medium, or Gujarati medium, order medium. Our quota is based on different categories. I ensure that the equal representation there. Whereas non-probability sampling is based on convenience. You have purposive sampling based on my purpose. I give questionnaire. Convenience based on my convenience. Cluster, again, quota sampling can be done in a cluster way. That means in an unscientific way, not objectively, but based on the convenience. And finally, snowball technique, where one sample leads to the other sample. This is being done in case of, for example, I want to study, do a study among research people. Now, studying research in nanoscience. So I need to know about nano. I'm going to study media consumption habits of nano persons who are conducting research in nanoscience. Now I find it very difficult. So one research student will lead to other research student through him. So like a snowball rolling. So through that I conduct this study. What you call is a snowball technique. I think I exceeded my time. Sorry for that. Thank you so much. And if you have questions, now it's open for questions. If you have questions, you can ask. If not, fine, then you can end this session.
So thank you so much, sir.